more of me talking, but please let's make it interactive. Otherwise, it will be a boring session. Essentially, to talk about the capability overview of our practices across QA, DevOps, and the process automation side, IPA practices. I've pulled in a lot of content across each. Probably I'll run through the structure first, what we have, where I have. Then I will start with each practice. Again, 2 hours is a too short time, or probably takes about a day to really go through every single document and every single integrity around all the practices. But I'll do my best to summarize everything in 2 hours to give a quick overview. Primarily, what are the capabilities at a high level? What are our partnerships, and what sort of enablement from a documentation standpoint that we have. What are some of our frameworks, and what are some of our differentiators, and where do we want us to go? Where are we taking bets on across each of the practices? So that's what is going to unfold in the next 2 hours. Before I do that, I just want to quickly run through um, the structure that I have, that I put in for each practice, and I'll run through it so that even if you don't get to cover everything, at least what is out there, and I'll give you access to all of you at the end of the session, and kind of just so that you know what is expected. Let me share my screen. I hope you all see my screen, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
So I do have a one overarching slide deck, that covers all three practices, that quickly summarizes what are our capabilities at a high level, then a case study on each of those, and that's all it talks about. But all the details come in respective sessions. For example, let me start with the IPA process automation. We have, kind of a deck that talks about our detailed capabilities. Then for life sciences, we are making a conscious decision to go about it in addition to two other areas which we'll cover today. But we're expected to have a detailed deck which is domain oriented for respective practices, for respective domains within the automation side. So one deck that's attached, and then a few other integrities around what is an RPA and how do we select about use case selections, just so that you ever get into any sort of customer discussions wanted to have. Then each other practice area will have a battle card and go to market go to market strategy around where are we doing our big bets, and what do you want to go about, right? And then specific to this, some use cases, and then the one folder for each of the partners that we have around UiPath, their heat maps and their decks. Then similarly for Automation Edge, their decks and their documents, their battle cards, and all of it. And I've also gathered analyst reports specific to automation, so that if you ever want to kind of get in, gather some more information, or even want to share with customers, I've kind of pulled in some analyst related as well. The same folder structures across all. For example, QA, same thing, analyst one and the partner GenRocket, Tricentis related. Then some research reports in addition to the analyst reports that we have. Then battle cards, big bets where we're doing, as well as the capabilities, but also most importantly the case studies. I pretty much was able to gather a lot of case studies across all three practices, and those are all at one place. Similarly, DevOps, capability deck, battle card, case studies, and some white papers and content from the analyst report standpoint. So that's the structure. Even if you don't get to go through all, I'll give you access to the entire repository. Please, go through them at your own convenience and ask me questions anytime. Happy to schedule an individual call or as another group call later on. So to start with, I don't have a preference, but in the past we have done quite a few around QA DevOps. So this time let's start with the process automation, and then we'll jump on to the other areas. Each one probably want to spend about 20-25 minutes to run through the capabilities and show the case studies at a very high level. then probably 5-10 minutes question and answers. Then we'll jump on to the other sections as needed. Okay. So specific to the process automation, again, let me come back to the overarching, slide deck that I have. So we are calling IPA practice as a whole to talk about how and what we do from a process automation standpoint. And of course, process automation predominantly is known as the RPA, but it's not just RPA. We'll talk about it what in detail. But our messaging to customers is that we definitely cover end to end when it comes to intelligent process automation. Realistically,
I'm sorry. Are
Mhm.
you sharing the screen? The
I
presentation?
I am. Oh, is it not visible? Okay, let me.
No.
No, no, it's visible. It's visible.
No, it's
Alessandro, I
visible
guess.
only the screen
No.
with the list of files,
Oh,
not
the
the
deck you're
presentation.
saying.
Yeah.
Oh, I started sharing the deck, but let me, let me stop sharing and then reshare. Do you see it yet?
Not yet.
Only a picture of you.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
You got to smile though.
Is that good enough?
All right. Now
All
we
right.
can see.
That's the
There we go.
solution. You just need to show your face and we'll close the deals.
Yeah, let's do that. All right. So, from the process automation standpoint, although a lot around RPA, we do much more than RPA, and we have some customers where we are doing that already. So, but our general pitch and our ability in general is what we recommend to customers is typically there are two types of customers that we typically come with. One set of customers, they precisely know what use cases they want to automate or where they want to start with. And usually our sales cycle is easy, but the revenue is relatively small in those group of customers. We just go about selecting a right platform for them and then or start automating the use cases that customer knows. The second set of customers is where customers would want to do the automation, but they have no clue on how they want to go about, or at least wanted to do a holistic approach, the methodical approach around how one should approach to, selecting some use cases or RP and all that. And that's what exactly we do. On the left-hand side, what you see at the bottom side, reimagining processes is what we start and where we start. Typically, we go about or can help customers around looking at their processes, conducting workshops, more as a discovery assessment type of workshops, understand and mine and select which use cases to automate, which processes to kind of drop. More of a process assessment and the use case selection assessment to start with. And once we have that list, then one platform or the other as a combination of different automation techniques we could automate them. Then in certain portions of automation, especially around the document processing or even around some complex data analysis around all that, there is a lot of emphasis around AI that can be used. And we kind of bring in those platforms to process it. And then finally, making it more as an intelligent enterprise wherein majority are automated, but at the same time there are some human involved workflows called human in the loop that we can enable, where a specific approval is needed, specific automation that can integrate with manual steps and all that. So majority automation, but some sort of human in the loop that is still required and can also enable. So it's more of an maturity generation for the customer or a period of time on how you take from one stage to another stage, is what we have been doing to customers, and we are confident of doing those to customers. Um, we are marketing ourselves as having 100 plus dedicated team. Realistically, we are somewhere between 50 and 100, but through our extended partner teams and through our teams, we're confident that that's a team that we can kind of go about in the market. And in terms of a partner ecosystems, We have dealt a lot of projects with UiPath so far, so we have strong competencies there. Automation Edge, we are slowly picking up, and especially in the Brazil area, we have started doing some projects. And even on the US side, we started doing some projects, at least having some conversations around. So Automation Edge is our second, kind of, from a competency standpoint, is kind of getting there. And Blue Prism and Automation Anywhere, we have done some projects in the past. We do not have any running projects right now, but we do have a couple of employees who are skilled there. Then Power Automate is gaining traction, which is from Microsoft, which is actually gaining traction in the workflow automation side. So if we have any customers that use Microsoft products or Microsoft heavy, it's a natural inclination that they would ask for Power Automate over any other tool. But Power Automate does has some strengths and some weaknesses. It's not really comparable to UiPath yet. But then when it comes to workflow automation and Microsoft driven products, doing some work around the Excels or emails, Power Automate is still good. So depending on use case selection, we can kind of pick and choose which tool and as a combination of tools. And Celonis, we do have an active partnership, but we don't have active engagements right now. Um, is predominantly around process mining. They have a tool that actually go through different systems, data, really look at all the data, and then kind of identify the processes with some variations, deviations, process, sort of, analysis. So it essentially, for example, if you have SAP, if you have, let's say, take order to cash as a process, order to cash right from the beginning to the end, it's a sequential flow. But in reality, you may find a lot of processes that has a lot of variations. When you get an invoice, how it gets processed, different manual routes. A simple order to cash, from most common organizations, was identified having at least 50 to 100 different variations within the flow. And the tool can actually pull all the data from respective ERP systems or necessary systems, aggregate all the data, and then show you which processes need to be optimized, which processes are redundant, which ones are actually can be retired, and which ones actually can be automated. So when you see the flow, when you see the number of the data that is kind of runs behind the scenes, you can easily use that analysis to identify which processes to be automated, where majority is concentrated, and where minority is there to trim down and all that. So it's a great process efficiency in the process mining tool that can, the outcome of that process mining is for you to really take one of the actions, predominantly the automation actions. Then the next set are more around exponential AI. We do use them part of our work engagement. We had great partnership with them, but then right now we are not really going ahead with them in the newer in the newer engagements because of the lack of support from them and their platform complexity. But most importantly, that's a very tactical partnership for us. As and when that's that is needed, we'll bring them in. But otherwise, it's mostly UiPath Automation Anywhere and Celonis is where we want to consolidate. Indigo Data is an IDP platform, and IDP platform meaning intelligent document processing, data extraction, data classification, and data messaging, and working with the respect to automation tools to do it. So it's mostly around if we need an independent IDP engine, they're great partners, and great tool and great platform that can easily integrate with UiPath and other tools in the market. Esker, we do have a couple engagements there, Frontier being one and two others. It's predominantly simplifying the automation around ERP systems on selective ERPs, selective processes like order to cash, procure to pay, and all that. It's predominantly, very pre-built automation suites for some of these identified or mostly common processes, but not a replacement of UiPath and all that. So in all, we have a wide variety of partnerships, but most importantly, UiPath and Automation Edge is where we have a lot of our bets that's going on. And what we do essentially is three different sets of offerings. one around the core automation side, doing assessments and consulting. We can offer customers looking at their landscape, identifying the process, use case selection, identification, how should they even go about it, and all that. Then bot optimizations, RPA, actual bot development and testing, industry or domain specific automation. Again, that's something we have to be very niche there. Life sciences, we are there. Manufacturing, which Mahesh has picked, is confident there. And so does on the lending and the finance side. So those are the ones that we're starting with. We're not saying no to the other areas, but RPA being very domain focused and a lot of business involved, we got to be selective in doing that automation. But support system automation can be done anytime. Then IDPs, which I said, the intelligent document processing, we can certainly do that. Then chatbots, we've already built for some customers, and those we can do too. And also some independent QA and maintenance work. Like if someone else built the development of the bots, we can go there as an independent QA and test those bots, automate those bots from a testing standpoint, and we can also do the maintenance of those bots on a long run basis. On the process mining side, process mining, optimization, and task mining, which goes hand in hand with the automation, either as a prerequisites or as a part of a separate process. And then finally, on the workflow automation side, primarily around ITSM automation and end-to-end workflow automation. These are our very high level, capabilities. Before I kind of, move on, let me just kind of, spend a few minutes on this. Typically, what's our
Or
automation
even
approach?
Shiva, before going forward, any questions, anybody on the offerings, anything that you want Shiva to drill down in terms of any explanation required on the offerings?
How does it change in the offerings depending on, if you go to the slide before this on the ecosystem? So depending on the offering, which of these ecosystems would you like to push?
Yeah, so it, like I said, based on, let's say, for example, on the process mining side, which is predominantly Celonis and UiPath that has automation edge, also has automation discovery edge that does it. The tool selection is depending upon not just the the type of offering that we do, but also the type of landscape that customer has. Microsoft versus a natural tendency towards a specific technology that customer would have, and a lot of different factors would play in when it comes to the tool selection. So, but in general, UiPath and Automation Edge has a wider coverage, and Automation Edge being a hyper automation platform. Again, I'll cover those in the coming slides. Those would be our natural, inclination towards UiPath and Automation Edge. But on select offerings, we naturally go and pick in other things. For example, chat.
No, go
Again,
ahead.
those are coming in different slides. I'll come to it a little later, but that's a very high level answer that I would want to give. But I do have a dedicated slide. Each of these areas, what is our primary partnership, what is our secondary partnership, and how do we go about it? And that's coming later on. Yeah, so let me quickly cover this slide and a typical approach.
Okay, thanks.
How we do. And then I'll kind of move on to the different slide deck, also open up for a broader set of questions, is especially the second tier of customers, where I said we can do a lot of, kind of right from the beginning, helping customers. This is how we have done in work, and this is how we can do for other customers too, in terms of starting right from the automation evangelization standpoint. A lot of customers are on the fence whether they should do really automation or not, what sort of areas they need to focus on, what are the expected benefits, how are their competition doing from an automation standpoint. All that can be done part of the automation evangelization. Primarily, our intent is to bring an outside-in perspective to our customers on what do we want to do, kind of create that vision, frame the vision in terms of customers, and then do a design-led consulting in terms of educating customers around RP and the process automation, as well as helping them identify the right use cases with our mining and optimization framework. So the second stage is more around doing a discovery either through the tools like I mentioned with the Celonis or equivalent, or through human dumps like conducting some workshops, understanding we have defined templates around how we go about selecting a particular use case by doing there are different parameters like how repetitive a process is, number of steps involved, complexity of the system, the ROI that gets generated. So we do a complete analysis across each of the business processes and the sub scenarios, document, and then identify the right automation use cases. But when it comes to automation, we often refer IPA as RPA, but that's not just it. As you could see in the middle diagram there, it's a hyper automation side where it's not just RPA. It can be an RPA bot, it can be a chat bot, it can even be a Microsoft Excel macro, it can be a conversational bots, it can be a low code no code automation, with Appian or Kissflow or QuickBase or one of these, or it can be a workflow that combines everything together, an ITSM to a chatbot to RPA, all the things put together. So end of the day, it can be any of these automation techniques. It's not just RP alone. And that's exactly what we define as part of the process mining and the initial exercise to see what are the use cases, what kind of automation that we need to do for a given use case. Pick one of these use cases, and the tool selection also depends on one way or the other. Typically, hyper automation platforms like Automation Edge can cover any of these together in one platform, or if you take UiPath, there are modules respectively for each of this. For example, UiPath has a low-code, no-code platform. UiPath has a component for RPA. It has a component for IDP. It has a component for chatbot. So you got to kind of pick and choose based on what is needed. So it can be a one platform, it can be a combination of platforms, but that's exactly what we define based on the use case that is needed. Again, we also have a defined framework on how we go about each one of these. Then finally, we supplement or coupled with IDP, intelligent document processing platforms like UiPath document understanding or equivalent. And then we design the bot. On a long run, we monitor and measure and do the continuous optimization monitoring of the bots and all that, dashboarding, whatever that is needed. So that's typically our approach or recommended approach on how we're going about customers. So when you engage with any customers, so this is a type of framework that I request you to bring in with customer and say that, hey, we can do end to end. We can start right from the outside in perspective evangelization, helping them select the right use cases, helping them pick the right platform, do the automation across, whatever is the number of, automation. We can define a roadmap over a period of time. We can slowly automate, show the value, prove the value, crawl, walk, run approach, or we can do a big bang approach. But one way or the other, we can build the automation and we can help them with an ongoing support and maintenance perspective to maintain, optimize, monitor those bots. I'll take a quick pause, ask any questions that you have.
Yes, Shiva. I do believe we are our strongest partner. It's in UiPath, right?
We have done more implementations on UiPath, but
Yeah.
we do have good support from Automation Edge as well.
Perfect. How do you see the other competitors in terms of evolution, solution evolution during these years? Because I heard Blue Prism that it used to be one of the best. It's getting behind for a long time.
Right.
They are not having more uh, uh, best functionalities or support or in terms of product evolution, they are not bad. They are not the best in the market right now. How do you see this? And because I was trying to sell Automation Edge in PwC, was the first meeting, but then they just told me they acquired a lot of license from UiPath, but they don't have the research. So I'm proposing to use our resources to help them with the SAP. So
Right.
this is one case. The guy already have, but if the guy have also Blue Prism, do we have professionals to work with Blue Prism and other Automation Anywhere, other platforms?
Yeah. So like I mentioned earlier, we do have resources that work across different technologies, but Blue Prism, Automation Anywhere are not our focus areas.
Okay.
If it's a bigger size deal, then happy to kind of accept. If it's like 1 or 2 kind of staff augmentation needs, Blue Prism, Automation Anywhere, those kind of platforms, we wouldn't want to take it because it's not our
Okay.
focus area. Our
Yeah.
focus area is predominantly UiPath, Automation Edge, Celonis. But to answer your question a little holistically, it is true that Blue Prism used to lead the market. And I think Gaurav can talk more because he has closed a lot of deals, through Cognizant, a lot more there. But in general, Blue Prism used to lead. But the number of customers that have migrated from Blue Prism to UiPath in the last 2 years is, in fact, UiPath had a lot more revenue from the customers that had Blue Prism than, kind of bringing a new set of, from the scratch type of customer. So it is true. But in general, who is leading the market right now is UiPath. But
And another question is, how quickly can you prepare our local area in Brazil to work with UiPath? Can you train the guys? Can you start developing our local practice here?
see, it's a combination. UiPath can be picked up easily, but at the same time, it has its own learning curve. But we do have teams in India already who are readily available who can pick these engagements. But we can also stand up a team in Brazil. But it all depends on, our execution model cannot be constrained to a given region, right? So we need to really look at the kind of scalability and the talent availability pool and how quickly do we need resources. If there is a project that comes in, do we really want to train somebody there and then wait for the project to kickstart, or do we just leverage someone who is already available in India and just get started?
Okay.
And second, if we have a forecast of, say, that we do want to close a specific number of, and if we are strongly confident about closing some deals in the coming quarters, we can definitely put up a plan, kind of make a case to the management on bringing up or scaling up some resources. At the same time, we do have a strong, language barrier in the Brazil. So we may or may not be able to execute everything from offshore. So we also have to have some conduits, some coordinators in between, who can translate, who can work closely with, who understands UiPath in the Brazil also. So we may have to have some investments there, but we wouldn't need to wait to stand up a team in Brazil to execute any sort of engagements.
Yeah, what happened is sometimes if you work with PwC, for example, they don't have problem. They already have a lot of global providers and they are English speakers. They don't have problem with the language, but we definitely need to develop our local practice. Not just because we are going to have language barriers, but also because we will develop a nearshore operation. So in order to provide services from Brazil to other countries, we will need to develop not only UiPath. I'm going to tell you, we will bring some practice to Brazil, like automation. It's one of them for sure. I think it's the easiest way to get inside of the customer from the front door and the first time. Automation, Salesforce, SAP, and data analytics. There are some practices that we will need to develop here in Brazil.
Sure.
At least have 1 or 2 person, 2 people, specialists here work globally with you under your team, of course, under your area, your practice, but also working locally.
No, sure. I don't deny that. Definitely agreed. But bringing in, kind of standing up a team, by kind of learning is a long curve, and we cannot really rely on them to be an expert. So I would rather kind of hire someone who already knows, or maybe some other strategies to start with, to have the representation. And learning and training is a long-term plan to kind of scale. So we need
Even
to
for a
really look at
developer?
build and scale phases. On the build phase, I would rather hire a strong person already who knows and who can be local. And on a scale phase, we can kind of train and then stand up the team.
You know, we have more than 150 developers here, right, in Monitora.
Yeah, but they're not
We know
UiPath
that it's a
developers, right?
software, it's more a software house than other things, right? So I can imagine for me or for someone technically speaking, if they have no background in developing, it must be very a huge learning curve. But for a developer, I think they can learn much faster than a normal user, right?
Yeah, I think
What do you think?
we can take that offline, Marcelo. I'm not saying no to what you're saying, but I do want to kind of the first person cannot be a person who is just learning, even though they're experienced. The first person who you represent in front of customers has to be someone who has already done that work, as opposed to getting trained now. That's all my point
That's
is.
for sure. That's for
Right.
sure.
So let's, based on the, deal pattern, based on the bets that we're going to make, we can make a case to the management and we can take it offline and see how and what
Perfect.
number so that we can scale up. And it's a combination of external hire plus some trainings in local Brazil, plus some readily available resources across other regions.
Sounds perfect. Thank you.
And just on your point, Marcelo, if you see any customer on Blue Prism, most likely they'll be migrating over to one of the other
UiPath.
platforms, whether it is Automation Anywhere or UiPath. And it is hard to find the skills as well. So if you look at Blue Prism and other products, Blue Prism is more governance, compliance, and much more rigid than Automation Anywhere or UiPath, which are more nimble and agile products to build the automations. So it was always harder to build automations and much more process oriented on Blue Prism than anything else. And Blue Prism was also bought over by private equity. So that thing, Blue Prism is past. They were pretty good in the insurance space, but
Yeah.
most of the insurance players are moving back to now UiPath or any other product. Right? Between UiPath and Automation Anywhere, UiPath has been little ahead in terms of bringing in the whole end-to-end automation story, and Automation Anywhere is kind of little following up on that. But right now, UiPath is definitely the market leader with 10,000 plus customers. And I think a good number of them are also $1 million plus customers for them. When you're
Good.
talking to PwC, PwC has more than a $25 million contract with UiPath. They have around
Yeah.
30,000 plus licenses that they bought in a multi-year deal. So they are pretty much married to UiPath right now, and it is more around their citizen developer bots, Shiva, that they did the deal, right? So PwC, it's all UiPath. Now, when we looked at Automation Edge, it is all about a partner who is standing with you, who will do what how you want to structure a deal or how you want to take it to a customer uh, versus UiPath, who is already established and in certain cases might arm twist you or look at doing it their way, right? So that's the difference. And Automation Edge, at least from the Brazil perspective, has 100 plus customers, so they have a decent standing in that geography. Obviously, UiPath will be the top leader there, but Automation Edge can be that other tier 2 partner for us.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Okay, sure. You still do see my screen, right? I just want to make sure that while I pass through. So, we have few other slides to talk about, what different toolkit do we have? How do we enable, the automation, the bot testing strategy, the maturity model in general, and the factory models and some case studies and all that. So, again, I'll give you access to this link. Please go through it and then ask any questions that you have. But I just want to quickly skim through the slides, different case studies and all that. Let me now show you, the other case studies that we have. Sorry. So in general, we do have a lot of other case studies that I picked. They're all out there in this folder. So we kind of documented Frontier Corp, we're doing a supply chain based test automation. The case studies out there. ITG is Intertrust. We have built an invoice bot automation and the KYC document related automation. Those bots are out there. One is POC, one is real implementation in production. But the case studies are out here. Then Itochu, we have a lot of support system related and document understanding related, IDP related use cases that are out here. Merck, pretty much the entire pharma related, life sciences related, and then some support systems, including chatbots, IDPs, they're all documented here. Then SCG is automotive side, but it's predominantly the SAP related automation, report generation, those kind of case studies are here. Then Xerox is predominantly a finance and accounting related use cases. And again, the process mining related as well as the entire case study is documented here. Then XPMS is, our partner, the Exponential AI. They have some solutions that they've done to their customers and our customers. Those are also documented here. But predominantly, Frontier to Xerox is our case studies, and they're all here. And Marcel have added Brazil as a folder. As soon as I get your slide, we'll add it there too, in terms of automation. Again, please go through this. I'll probably pick one just to show you the format in which we are doing. Just from an Frontier standpoint, the typical challenges, solutions, outcomes. We have also designed a workflow. What process actually have we automated really? So those are also out there, and it's the same format consistently across all of the case studies as well. Now, let me jump on to the quick bets related.
Shiva, one question from me.
Sure.
Among the case studies that you shared, which one would be the one that you're really proud about in terms of
definitely the Merck case study, because we have done tons of bots already. I'll show you the kind of list that we have done for Merck. I'm sorry. Here is the Excel that has the entire list. So different automation, the business process area, it has the entire list of like the benefits, the use cases, descriptions and all. But as you could see, we have close to 50. Again, this is slightly dated, but we have close to 50 bots that are already in production. And this is everything that is in production. And there is at least another 2025 that are in pipeline. By the end of 2023, there will be another 2025 bots added. So this is a great case study, and it's at an enterprise level. And the bigger case study for this is also as a whole is also listed under our overall capability slide. The deck that I've shown you earlier, we have a slide that talks about how we went about it in terms of evangelization, doing some mining, and actually doing automation and monitoring some technologies, and the benefits and the gains that customer has.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So jumping on to the partner strategy and the bets where we are doing. Sort of, I think you asked a question earlier, which I kind of partly answered but deferred. This is our typical strategy about where and what we want to do about. So specific to RPA, definitely UiPath and Automation Edge. UiPath, has a broader reach from an enterprise customer standpoint, and Automation Edge from a small to medium, businesses. But again, Automation Edge has the hyper automation, kind of cycle where it kind of integrates a lot of different components under one. But UiPath does more as an a la carte menu, and then you can bring them all together. But from an IDP standpoint, we have been doing quite a few good projects around UiPath document understanding, which is also kind of emerging right now under UiPath, and we're building strong competency there. But we've also done few other platforms, AB Flexi Capture, Vantage, done for Intertrust. We have also used lead tools for Intertrust. And Indico Data, we have done some POCs. These are our secondary, but primary is UiPath. Chatbots, we have built around Azure Bot as well as Rasa. Rasa primarily in Merck, but getting resource availability in Rasa is challenging. But in general, Azure Bot, or a few others, even including automation edge. So depending on the integrations that are needed, say integration with Teams, integration with Slack, and all that. Depending on that, or the choice of platform would differ. But these are some selective technologies. No primary, secondary, but it's more of a tactical and selective based on the integrations that are needed. Workflow automation, definitely Power Automate. And then secondary is more of Workato. You come across Workato quite a lot in the workflow automation side. We don't have an active partnership with Workato, but it's something that we have a couple freshers who are trained. If something comes up, we can take that too. Process mining, Celonis is strong, but UiPath also has it. Considering our strong reliance and dependence on UiPath, we're picking that up. Automation Edge is also listed here as secondary because they do have Discovery Edge, but we haven't really tried it on a bigger scale. But UiPath we did, so we're kind of confident and listed as the primary there. And hyper automation meaning having one platform that can do varieties of automation, be it chatbot, be it RPA, be it IDP. All that is predominantly Automation Edge is primary because it brings it all together under one platform. Whereas UiPath is more of an a la carte. So if there is a use case that requires hyper automation need, our first preference is Automation Edge, and secondary is UiPath. And UiPath, both UiPath and Automation Edge are strategic. But as Gaurav already mentioned, right, UiPath has too many partners, and getting leads from UiPath is really challenging. But Automation Edge being a small player relative to UiPath, we do have an edge there to, kind of where we can get some partner source deals for us through Automation Edge, and also the level of support that we can get. And we also made a strong conscious decision that for Brazil, we do want to be Automation Edge on a primary end. Again, we don't say no to any other deals, but at least our preference is Automation Edge because Marcelon team has already connected with Automation Edge local sales team and the technical team who is already supporting going hand in hand. And we can also kind of white label Automation Edge platform if needed for any of our customers across the regions. And for Germany, our Arjun's team, on the pharma and life sciences side, they've already had great connections with UiPath team that is out there. Probably that would be a primary there. Again, we're not going to say no to other platforms. It's we're not biased, but at least what is our primary is Automation Edge in Brazil, UiPath in Germany, and all other areas will be selective based on the chart which is given above. And within UiPath,
just one thing,
Sure.
Shiva, that I'll add. See,
Yes.
since UiPath already has 10,000 plus customers, right? A lot of your customers or members that you will reach out, if they already have UiPath, then there is no point pitching in Automation Edge or anything. A lot of these customers, they have started their journey, they have built their COEs, but they haven't really seen the value, or they need help in selection of use cases and then building of those pods. That is easy and that can be done. And these are typically from 50 to 100 to 200K kind of deals for building 3 to 5 bots. And as we put our worth with the customer, then these deals can easily go between 500K to a mil, but it takes a little bit of time to build that rapport with the customer, right? But automation is definitely one of that spearheads to enter into that customer. But if a customer is facing issues with the cost and they say, hey, I'm spending too much of money already on one tool, or they are looking at change, then yeah, it's better that we can also look at Automation Edge because of their cost structures. They do provide RP as a service natively. So there are ways that we can help customers reduce their cost on the licensing if that is one big area that they want to focus on. But if you know that any of your customers are already on UiPath, then most likely just go and pitch for bot building, doing the assessment, support,
Or
or
even
additional
optimization.
building. Yeah,
Right.
or optimization.
Sorry, what did you say was the average size of the deal in intelligent automation?
Suresh, I say to start with, if a customer has already they are already on a journey, then it is 50 to 200, where you are just building the bots, right? Not doing the assessments. A typical COE build-up is around 250 to 300K kind of an opportunity now. It used to be $1 million that KPMGs of the world and EYs of the world used to charge each of the customers for building their center of excellence, but they never used to get a value out of it, right? So, and once you get into that account, you have that 200K kind of deal already in, and you build that use case or the pipeline of use cases to be automated, then it can easily go into 500K to $1 million.
So the Merck deal that you guys pulled through, which is it seems like an annuity kind of business, right? You're engaged with them on a continuous basis. Yeah, how long did it take to mature to that stage? Just curious.
Yeah, so it's been at least close to 2 years. The 50 bots that I've shown that we built, it's a combination of Exponential AI and our team. But yeah, it took about 2 years to reach that stage. And again, in automation, there's nothing like annuity. Only the support part of it is annuity. Building bots is like, you keep building, for different set of use cases, right? So it's always a constant exercise where you mine, continue to pick new use cases. And that's where the assessments or the continuous journey with the customer from a use case selection is the key thing. Once we set up the initial cases, then that exercise has to come. So specific to Merck, it's about 2 years journey. But again, the use case selection has to happen on a constant basis.
And
The
this
only
is
annuity
again
part
one
is the
area,
maintenance.
right? And automation again is one area where you can bundle your licenses and services together. It is easy to bundle your licenses on the automation, right? Which can be as small as $1,000 to 10 million in licenses. Just in licenses with a average 20 to 40% margin.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
So the bigger bets is mostly around on a domain side, pharma life sciences because of the Merck work that we did, and lending and finance again, lot of work around Intertrust, Itochu, and the focus that we have. Then manufacturing side, again, we do have 2 case studies there, but again, that's an area where we are also focusing on, significantly. We're not saying no to other areas. I'm just saying like we'll have a specific decks and specific focus around domain for these specific to automation. And all others which are common for any customer is like support systems automations around finance, and HR systems, and even ERPs automations like SAP driven order to cash, procure to pay, and all of these, even including SAP and for Oracle, any of the ERPs, it doesn't matter. And that's where we want to go. And lastly, I do want to quickly kind of show the other deck that we have. Again, I'm not going
Right.
to go through
And
full
just also before you go there, on the process mining standpoint, Celonis, generally the entry point is around 100K in license and then 150K in services, right? So a customer who has invested a lot on SAP and that side might be interested in Celonis because your entry point is around 250 to 300K versus UiPath process mining, which can be lower in cost. And if customer has already invested in UiPath, on the RPA side, it is easy to take them towards the process mining. But Celonis, it is a little difficult sell in the sense that you need to have right relationship and also to show the ROI. If you're spending a 300K and looking at the process mining, then that process should have a good amount of inefficiencies for the ROI to be right for it, right? So
yeah, typically the small, medium customers would not afford those. It's only the enterprise customers who would look at
right.
the formal tool-driven process mining type of. So we have to be selective in how and where we propose. But then, yeah, it's a great potential if one can afford. This is another deck, actually, which we prepared last year, part of the bigger exercise that was done. I'm just kind of reusing a battle card around what are our offerings, and of course the same slides that I've shown, but a very high level elevator pitch, some positioning at different levels, and some FAQs like what is RPA, IDP, just so that you're familiar with the names and what each one's these mean. So it's all out there. Please go through it and let me know. Like I said, if I were to go through line by line, slide by slide, it takes at least a day for each of the practice. Similarly, we've also done what essentially is, we looked at various companies, organizations, process related, and those who are playing a role, product companies. What we have done is we picked up specific use cases that can be done, not that Marlabs has done, but that can be done across different industries, different processes. For example, banking, retail assets, what are some of the use cases that can be done? So if you're ever getting into a customer discussion, it's not about what Marlabs has done, but what are some of the use cases? Please refer to this. We spent close to 2 months in gathering data across different websites and all that. We, probably you would see close to 200 slides, but it's a very detailed document that we prepared specifically for our team, who are kind of us, customer facing, just so that you understand and you are not blank in terms of any sort of use cases. So this kind of details out within banking, retail, assets. Maybe you pick some other slide like banking, retail liabilities, invoice related, some trade finance related. It has across the entire list that you can usually pick. If you don't find it here, it's highly unlikely you find it anywhere else. That's the kind of
I
exercise
think
we have done.
I think it would be very useful for me. Last week I had a meeting with the vice president of JP Morgan in Brazil, and they are in the right moment asking for me what do we
No
do
problem.
best for BFSI areas. So
Sure,
first of all,
please go through it. Like I said, this is not what we have done. These are some ideas that can be done. I just want you to be
great.
very conscious of
But
it.
have you ever worked with JP Morgan, United States, or other countries? Do you have any reference or refers?
No, not from
Oh,
my practices. No.
okay, don't worry, don't worry. But
Sure.
this part would be very useful for me.
Sure,
I'm gonna
definitely. Again,
suggest.
it's in the same repository. It's across all the domains, banking, finance, manufacturing, supply chain. We have healthcare related, insurance related, pretty much all domains, government and public sectors. Even function wise, function wise meaning finance and accounting related, information and technology related, human resources, HR related, sales and marketing. So pretty much it's like a repository of close to 170 slides, and each slide has about 5 to 6 use cases. Again, idea is to help you with what all different possibilities in automation across the industries, across different functions. Idea, again, this is not what Marlabs has done. This is about what can be done. I just want to be really cautious there.
Right.
Perfect,
And
don't
Marcelo,
worry.
on JPMC, they were pretty big on Softomotive, which got acquired by Microsoft and became part of their Power Automate platform. And also on UiPath, they got a good deal from Softomotive back a few years back. So they do a lot of business on now, which I should say on Power Automate and then UiPath.
Great, great. I'm gonna go back for you guys if I need help to compose this
Sure, definitely.
that system.
And specific to Automation Edge and UiPath, again, we do have the battle cards. For example, specific to Automation Edge, we do have like their differentiation, their battle cards around all of it. So again, the entire material dump is right here. Please pick and use. And specific to UiPath, UiPath actually has something called heat maps, meaning for each of the areas, very similar to the one that I've shown. It doesn't go in detail on what use case really mean, but at a very high level, for example, if I pick finance and accounting, this they have something called heat maps. So they kind of analyze each function within the respective area, in this case, which is finance and accounting. What are different areas and what is the level of automation that can be done. So as you can see the legend here, the highest possible automation is kind of marked in the thicker ones versus the regular ones. So each of the process area, kind of source to pay, order to cash, what all can be done. Again, they do not have the descriptions, but at least at a very high level use case, or the process level, they kind of mapped. And again, they have this across all, like banking, contact center, healthcare, insurance, IT, and all that. So these are also available in the same folder. Please do take a look based on your customer meetings.
And we do have, as you know, we have a partnership with them. You have access to the partner portal
Partner
where
portal.
a lot of this more information is there. Plus also the academy where you can go and do a little bit more of a sales enablement if you want. We can share that after this call. I'll share the link for you to register and do a little bit more trainings as well.
Yep. So that's about it. There's a lot of content that I made available, including the analyst reports and all that. Please do go through them. Any questions, always please do reach out.
Shiva, if we are going for a first level of discussion on IPA opportunity, without knowing much about what the opportunity is or what the use case is, which is the one that we go with in this presentation deck?
Yeah, so I would just go with two slides to begin with. I think I closed that slide deck, but let me quickly open. Just to talk about our automation capabilities, just around the first slide that I picked. I hope you see my screen, about
Yeah.
our service and capabilities, offerings, and our approach. That's where I would like you to start. But before you go for the meeting, please do take a look at the case studies that I've presented here, as well as the heat maps, just so that you understand, to be prepared, what all can be done for a customer. And also, this battle card document has some set of questions that you can ask, some discovery questions, again depending on the customer maturity. What type of organization are they, what is their current landscape, do they have an automation COE? So these are all kind of what questions, what should be your elevator pitch, what kind of questions you should ask are already here in the battle card.
Sure.
Okay.
I think those 3-4 slides along with the case studies, I think could be the crux
Yeah,
of it,
case
right?
studies and some questions to be prepared for. These are good enough.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's sure.
Okay.
And all these are in the shared
All these
folder.
are in the shared path that I've shown, right here, the IPA drive. I'll give you just link to this wholesale and sales enablement. Everything is here.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Across all the practices. So any questions before I jump on to the next practice area? Okay. So let me jump on to the quality engineering side as the next one.
And Shiva, before even you jump, did you also share the typical client profiles who are the right people to talk to about automation?
Yeah, so we have, let me go back. The same battle card deck has the positioning at different levels, because every organization, when it comes to automation, is different. The discussions can happen at different levels.
Right. It can go
So
either the business route or IT route, both per se. So
right, but we do have like per se, at a C level,
okay, yes.
whichever our offerings would make more sense. and what are the kind of business outcomes that can happen, and what are some of the differentiators that we can really call about. Again, not a true 100% differentiator, but at least something you can present to a discussion at C level, at D or head of automation level, as well as anybody at below D level.
Right. So you can actually reach out to CFO for automation in the finance and accounting. It can be any of the business lines for automation within their units, or even in the procurement with P2P and others, right? So across the business lines, you can pitch for process automation.
Yep. Thank you. Let me now jump on to the other area. Sorry, I'm kind of in the interest of time, I'm just kind of quickly moving up. So the other one, again, very similar structure. We have analyst reports, partnership related partner documents, then some research reports, that we've got. Then, specific to quality engineering, when Madhavan was there, we built a lot of battle cards. I've kind of given access. So we built battle cards specific to each offering. AI-enabled quality engineering, AIOps, which is part of DevOps, of course. Then bot testing, chatbot testing, agile testing, Salesforce testing, performance testing, QA/QE. For each of these, we have a specific battle card, for each and every line. For example, let me pick, the test automation. For example, test automation, again, follow the same positioning that we had. What are our offerings? What is our elevator pitch? What are some of our differentiators? And some cost benefits, some questions to ask, then some success stories, and then our positioning, at a different level, right? If you're meeting at a C level versus a director level versus, a level below that, what kind of, some of the questions and answers and some keywords and all that. Pretty much every document, every battle card that you see here follows, the same structure. So again, I'll start with the capabilities overview here, and then we'll come back to the other areas. All right. On QA, and of course, one of our strongest practices. We we are close to, we say close to 400, combining our professional services, direct and indirect, set of revenue, but we have close to 200 and a 30-member team on set offshore, just on the solution side. And we have spent a lot of time bringing most of our resources certified, either on technology side or on the domain side. But one way or the other, we have great competent team. But when it comes to the service offerings, again, we can do end-to-end test consulting, advisory, more of an assessment or any sort of engagements where, some sort of consulting or advisory part is needed. More than happy to do that. We have a lot of our existing engagements actually started that way, on the QA side, but we can continue to do that. Then test automation is one area, kind of very strong there. We have done automation with commercial tools like Tosca, HP, Micro Focus, UFT, Eggplants, Worksoft, pretty much, Test Complete. We have done one engagement or the other. We have had a lot of great case studies there on the test automation. We have also done open source tool driven automation, which is Selenium by far leads the market. But we also have few new tools like Playwright, Cypress, all that have emerged these days. But we have done test automation using both commercial tools and open source tools. And we have done it for web applications. We have done for mobile applications. We have done for API automation. We've also done for any sort of desktop and other legacy applications. So we are kind of confident there. Then performance testing and engineering. Again, we've also done with open source as well as commercial. Commercial predominantly Neoload and Load Runner. And on the open source, which is JMeter predominantly is what's widely used, and we kind of use it. So you could see all those tools on the left-hand side. Then digital assurance, meaning nowadays pretty much all platforms are mobile driven. So any new application that is built, customer expects us to validate against different browsers, different mobile devices, and any a lot of other applications, right? So we do definitely want to make sure that, and we have done this as an exclusive engagements, running across different browsers, doing mobile testing and all that. Then data testing. We can take data engagements. Of course, we do have data practice, but our team takes care of the testing for the data implementations, be it migration, data quality, data warehouse testing, ETL testing, test data generation for a for a given application migration. So you pretty much name it from a data standpoint, we can do it. Be it Informatica, EL, ETL related, Ab initio, any kind of platform or the tool you pick, we can do the testing for it. We have done that too. And most importantly, we've also, kind of, the platform that we have partnered with on the Tricentis side. There is also data, automation that we can do to Tricentis Tosca DI. And so we can do automation on the data side also. Then cloud transformation testing. This was done in parts here and there in the past, but this is going to be key going forward. That as we do a lot of cloud migrations, how do we make sure the functionality is still the same and we run it, so we can quickly automate the core functionality, and then once the application is migrated, we can run the same scripts just to make sure there is no functionality loss or no defects that are caused. So such testing we can do. We can also do, or we've also been doing AWS specific testing or Azure specific testing, some sort of cloud native related components. If there is any sort of refactoring that is done, we can also test those to make sure those are in line with whatever functionality that was enabled. The next one is more around test enablement. Test enablement in terms of creating test environments that are needed, or providing necessary test data that is needed, or which has tools like test data management, tools like with GenRocket and other things, or provisioning with different DevOps tools, or even ensuring some sort of data that gets copied over from production to lower environments. Again, all comes in part of the test enablement, part of test data management and test environment management. And again, we have some case studies, but those can be done too. And finally, bot validation. If we have any engagements that are done on the other side, on the RPA process automation side, if there are some bots that are built either by our team or another set of teams, we can actually take those and we can kind of validate those from an independent standpoint. For example, on the automation work COE, the bots are built by Marlabs. We also had, for the bots that we were building, Infosys used to do the testing. So now we took over from Infosys and our team does it. So it's an independent team which is not directly connected or part of the automation development team, but it's a separate team from a regulatory and compliance standpoint. We operate and we do test the bots that are built by our own Marlabs team, but as an independent fashion. So likewise, we can do the bot validation. So pretty much um, any sort of testing that is needed for a customer, we do it. The only thing which is not part of my practice is the security testing, because historically we had a security practice as a separate practice. They do the application testing, penetration testing, vulnerability testing, at the app level and at the infra level, and they are taking care of it. But again, from a customer standpoint, it doesn't matter who does it. Marlabs does it, but we have different teams to doing it. But anything other than security is part of my radar. Be it Salesforce testing, be it SAP testing, be it data testing, be it info testing or any other functional testing, it is all part here and we have been doing it. Any questions?
Shiva, do you want to touch upon a little bit on like individually Copado, which areas they generally fall in? We have seen that with Merck, they have bought Copado. Now with Bungie, we are trying to sell them mostly around the Salesforce implementation that we are doing. Similarly, with UiPath, since they already have that client base, what is on the testing side that team can generally pitch for if they see that some of these things are already present, right? Just as the conversation initiators, or for them to just know a little bit, if they know the landscape, what all to be navigated. And with Tricenters, like the one that you are doing with live compare around SAP, right? So a little bit flavor might help.
Okay. Yeah, I do have slides to talk about each one of those. Again, I don't intend to run slide by slide, but I definitely want to cover each portion and then talk about it, which is what is coming next. Okay. Actually, this doesn't have a lot of flexibility for me to move. Let me open the other deck. Same deck, but from a different view. Okay. What Gaurav has asked precisely is what I'm going to cover next. Um, you know, we over the period of time, we built a lot of frameworks, that helps for us to, serve customer better. We have frameworks from assessment standpoint, the templates, the roadmap creations, what we really recommend. So there is a precise process to it and how we do about it. And, there are a lot of frameworks built around. Then there are frameworks at the technology level for automation across different tools. We have one for UFT, Selenium, we have three. For API testing, we have one. SAP, we have two. Angular applications, we have one. Web applications, we have one. So likewise, depending on the technology, we did build a lot of these frameworks. And then specific to Tosca, we do have accelerators and framework again for Tosca, Infor and Salesforce, and some enhanced RE framework on the UiPath side, which is on the testing side, which I'll kind of show it later. But we do have built a lot of frameworks and accelerators more than a differentiation standpoint, as well as for customers to really, kind of get started quickly. There are different types of testing, which I want to touch at a very high level. And then two, what we do, what can be done, and what are the partners that we use for each of those areas. So VQT is validation, qualification, and testing, typically in regulatory, areas like life sciences, pharma, some healthcare related organizations. There is a process called validation, qualification, and testing. It's not true software testing, but it is more about how do you document, how do you create an evidence. So there is a methodology called CAMP methodology, and everything goes by it. So, we have specific approach around how we do validation, qualification, and testing. This is based on the GAMP 4 and 5 methodologies. And there are no tools that does this. This is all manual, and this has to be done manual. And some of the regression can be automated with test automation tools. So we have our methodology kind of listed around validation, qualification, and testing side. And like I said, it is in the GXP environment side. GXP is nothing but good practice for various industries like manufacturing, pharma, life sciences, and all those. So depending on how the system is classified, the testing or the approach would vary. So we do those. Then specific to data validations, like I said, we can do data migration, data verifications, both manually as well as automated. There are many tools in the market. Because of our strong partnership with Tricentis, we are promoting Tricentis Tosca DI from an automation standpoint. But there are other tools like ICEDQ, talent does the testing, write data. There are many tools and many platforms in the market, that can be done. But our focus predominantly is Tosca DI1. And if customer wants to do some open source driven, we can also customize and build. There are some Python based packages that are available, which we can customize and then build those. But of course, commercial tools, although they're expensive, they come with the basic structure that is needed for us to quickly build and automate. This is our approach with the Tosca DI tool. How do we and what do we test, from the data standpoint, right from data sources, ingestion standpoint, as the data flows through the ETL, transformation logic, and then finally testing across the reporting and analytics, crossing through the data marts and data lakes. Then specific to QA automation, we have a defined assessment approach. Again, looking at what customer has in terms of test cases, in terms of the areas. So we kind of build a heat map and then do it, but we leverage various tools to do it. So there are three types of QA automation tools, that are out there. One is a scriptless automation. There are many tools like Functionize, Catalan. Copado is not there in the list, but Copado has released one. UiPath Test Suite also has one. They all fall under scriptless. In today, in fact, we spoke with another vendor called LeapWorks. They all come under scriptless. Scriptless predominantly meaning they're not completely going away from scripting, but they minimize the need to really code, for an automation test. Then scripted, again, mostly automation, mostly open source, but there are also tools like test complete and UFT that fall under this category. And finally the robotic process automation tools, which is again from a core automation standpoint. So between those two, depending on the type of application, depending on what customer really needs, scripted versus non-scripted, commercial versus open source, we pick and choose a specific tool, and depending on the technology that they use. We have a defined framework for continuous testing, some AI/ML capabilities that we can build for customer. But predominantly, let me jump on to the next area, which is test data management. For test data management, our preferred partner is GenRocket. GenRocket, all they do is, they build a platform that does the test data management easy for the testers. So if, let's say, you have a system which is in production and the test version, and if you need data, production like scenarios and production like data, it makes it easy for us to pull from prod to lower environment by doing masking, by doing self-service portals and all that. Second, if you want to manually create some synthetic data based on the scenarios by creating a replicating of a production database and then kind of synthesizing some data with some masking the data with some PHA configurations and all that, the platform can do. Likewise, there are many such dependencies, but anything to do with test data creation, test data management, we leverage GenRocket. And this is one of the differentiated offerings, I would say, especially when you go to enterprise customers. QA is nothing new. Enterprise customers already would have very established, test automation frameworks, established manual testing practices and all that. But couple areas where we can penetrate through for the enterprise customers is, if they have scripted test automation approach, we can kind of take the route that, hey, we can bring in scriptless automation. We can help them kind of accelerating testing quickly, or we can optimize the test automation. But most importantly, a lot of customers still do not have an approach for test data management, and that's actually key. And that's one of the interesting conversations that we can have, especially for the enterprise customers, about going and doing the test data management. But that's again a door opener. Once we get in, we can kind of expand to other areas. But if customer says that they are already happy, they have everything else, most likely 99% customers would not have a test data management, and that's our opportunity to open the door. And our partner is GenRocket there. Again, some slides around some key considerations. What does the platform do?
Sure, one question on the test data management. Does this tool support testing of SAP Infor just like the way it would do for data migration project for a data warehouse, something like that, or there's a different?
Test data only gives the test data management capabilities. It does not do test automation. Testing in SAP, testing workflows, testing the entire end-to-end scenarios is part of the functional testing and the test automation. Test data management is to give the data that is necessary for the testers and the test automation to test a desired functionality. And that's where the test data management tool comes in. So to go back to your question, does this tool help you to validate SAP, ERPs, CRMs and everything? It does not test the systems, it does not assist you in test the system, but what it does is it gives any set of schemas, any set of applications, gives you the right data that is needed for you to test. I hope you understand the distinction.
Yes, I do. Where I was going was when you do data migration testing and you need test data for that.
Right.
You're talking about building some real world scenarios of data quality, infusing data quality issues, infusing.
Yep, we can use this. Yep, we can certainly use this. There's usually a combination of different strategies, that customers would use. One, they migrate from existing to the new one, but if the pattern and if the schemas are different, there is no way you can do. You have to do some logic and all that. Second, we use automation to create. And third and easiest is the test data management. We can do some SQL injections or do a synthetic data creation like the platform that GenRocket can support. It can define the schema, look at the schema, copy the schema, and then generate the data that is needed for your testing and across different tables, maintaining all the data referential integrity and all that. But yes.
Does it require some access to the production data to create the synthetic data, or can it be?
Not necessarily. You can create. We don't need to have access to production. We can actually define at the schema or the table level what kind of data that you want and how you want to do it. We do not need to have access to production to create a synthetic data in the lower environments. It would help to kind of see, but it doesn't. You do not need to have access.
Okay. Thanks.
Sure. Likewise, performance engineering is another area where, again, enterprise customers do focus a lot on the manual and automation, but performance testing, only few organizations do focus. That's another area where we can go about doing performance testing. But typically, performance testing engagements are very short-lived. They're not kind of annuity or perennial contracts. But we can do different types of testing, kind of load testing, stress testing, endurance spike, and all that. Again, all the definitions are listed. Each one aims at different, different jobs. For example, load testing is to make sure whether a particular application, how it kind of behaves at different sets of loads, like low, medium, complex, type of loads. Whereas scalability testing is to make sure how long a system can withstand a load a specific period of time. So there are different types of testing we do just to make sure the application is stable or application breaks, and if it breaks, where does it break and all that. So we could do all of that. Again, we don't have a lot of team members. It's kind of spread, but as I said, as needed, we can do any sort of engagements around this. Again, there are detailed slides around how we do about it and all that. So it's the entire deck that has the entire repository of all the, kind of, services. Any questions before I move on to the next area? Yeah, the next one is Salesforce QA. Of course, a lot of you would sell Salesforce engagements. Again, we can do Salesforce as part of the Salesforce, implementation or the, Salesforce work. but we can also sell Salesforce QA as an independent Salesforce QA. If someone else is doing implementations, we can be their QA partner as an independent QA. Or if it's already implemented on an ongoing maintenance, we can still be a Salesforce partner, right? For example, Claro, our team has done Salesforce implementation 4 years ago, but we still have QA team that is maintaining and testing lot, Salesforce as well as other applications. Likewise, we have few other engagements, right? So we can be an independent Salesforce QA team, and of course, we have strong presence there around that. And one differentiating factor is Salesforce. There are a lot of automation tools that are in the market. Some use Selenium, which is very popular open source tool. But there are a lot of other players like Copado, Provar, Approvance, Tosca, of course, Testim, Report, pretty much everybody you name, Functionize, Autonomic, everybody talks about automating Salesforce application because Salesforce is the easiest application from an automation standpoint because, it's easy to, scan the objects, easy to extract the objects, easy to maneuver, not a lot of complexity in the system. So it's usually very easy application. So you see a lot of automation tools in the market. You go to their website, first thing they say that they are good at testing Salesforce. But that also gives us a lot of competition on where we bet on it, right? So most of the tools are scriptless, those who claim Salesforce testing. But one that we have been kind of strongly relying upon again is Tricentis. With respect to Tricentis Tosca, we have built pre-built automation pack already for Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Marketing Cloud, and Community Cloud. So what you see on the right-hand side, these are the number of test cases are the pre-built. There are different modules. All these test cases are already there. So what it means is when you're going and implementing it, Salesforce, or when you're testing that implementation, or even if it is implemented, if you were to test and do a regression testing for Salesforce apps, you already have all these test cases pre-built, which you can take to customer environment. All you need to do is identify the delta between customer instance and our Salesforce plain vanilla instance. See what is customized, and you make those changes to our test cases. Only the part that is customized. The base version is already there. So the typical customization would look like adding a new field in a given screen, or removing some labels, adding some additional values in a drop down box. So these are the typical customization that Salesforce would do on top of the Salesforce, and some business logic, of course, is built around it. But the customization is the only part that we need to make changes to our sales. So this is a differentiator. And based on these accelerators that we built, we also won the Partner of the Year award for Salesforce last year by Tricentis. But this is truly a differentiator. No other partner of theirs has this kind of accelerators that were built. So which we can go bring it on, quickly stand up, and serve across this. We're also working at other areas to quickly build the scenarios, but we do have good coverage so far on these areas. One other player that we are also started engaging because some of our customers are asking is Copado. Copado is very known in the Salesforce market from a release management, build management, from the DevOps standpoint. So Copado is known there. They've acquired a tool last year to fill the gap of test automation from Copado standpoint. So they call it Copado Robotic Testing, CRT, by Copado, and they are strongly pushing all their Copado customers to take it. It is a decent tool, but it's not really established 100%. But based on the discounts that they're giving and all that, a lot of customers are considering Copado testing module also. We have certified professionals there. We started work with Merck, and most likely with the Bungie also. But we do have some engagements, and we can leverage. So Tosca is our first preference, but we can do on other areas, predominantly Copado, which is picking up in the Salesforce automation side. Any questions? Okay, similar to this, we have also built accelerators for Infor. So one thing with Infor ERP is, they have something called 60-30-10 in Infor terminology. 60% of Infor is core, meaning out of the box functionality. And 30% is more of a deployment configurations, which is again base version, but some changes here and there happen. And 10% is unique, which is the personalization or the customization that is done for given set of customers. Similar to Salesforce, we have also built, in fact, it's a dated slide. Pretty much everything is automated on this. We have also built, the pre-accelerator pack for Infor also. So if you go to a customer, any Infor customer of M3, these are the common modules they would have: sales, supply chain, procurement, finance, master data, and manufacturing. These are the core ones. There are 3 or 4 other modules that we have, but these are the big ones. We pretty much automated all these, test cases, and we have the business process. We have close to 200 automated test cases readily available that cater to close to 650 scenarios that any customer would have. This is the standard regression pack. We have all of them automated. So again, all that we need to do is when we go to a customer, we just need to look at the customization that is done for a specific instance of customer, modify our scripts to address those customization. That's all we need to do. So all that heavy lifting is done. In fact, we won Trimark based on these accelerators. We have 3 other conversations actively going on and very positive. So it's a very differentiator that we have built. Again, can others build? Probably yes, but we are the first one to build it. So we have the first mover advantage to quickly grab the market and make the noise and win some deals. So that's about Infor M3. We are building same for S4 HANA also. We just started it. We just started it. We are, likely to have in the next couple of months some decent coverage, but by end of this year we'll have, kind of similar coverage as what we have for M3 and M3 Infor and Salesforce. But more so to do, these are the differentiation that we want to bring so that we can quickly build out, and we can also give that cost advantage to customer. Of course, we charge some of this to customer, because we have initially invested, but then it will still save a lot of time for the customers. So we have for Salesforce, we have for Infor, which is 2 of our focus areas from the growth standpoint for Marlabs. We're also building it for S4 HANA, just so that we have the differentiation. They're all built around the Tosca so that we have consistency and the skill set needed on the back end to support these engagements, even when we engage the customers. I'd like to take a quick pause, ask if you have any questions. When it comes to Salesforce, there's a lot of competition of different players, like it said, like Copado and few others. When it comes to Infor ERP, there is no competition. It's just like standard automation tools are picked, no differentiation as such. But that's exactly an advantage for us. When it comes to SAP though, SAP has competition from Worksoft. Worksoft has native integration. They used to native integration with SAP. Now Tricentis actually has the native integration with SAP. And one uniqueness with SAP, which I'll kind of talk about in a slide later on, is Tricentis has something called Live Compare from change management. So what it essentially means is if there is any change that happens in a specific module of SAP, it is very hard to test every single scenario, and it is also hard to know which test cases that are impacted. So Tricentis has built a module called Live Compare, which actually kind of highlight any changes that are made and what are the impacted areas that we need to test rather than testing everything. So it's very focused testing, very focused impact based, which Tricentis has done, which is another product that is gaining popularity, but that goes hand in hand with the SAP testing that I was talking about. Any questions? . Okay, so we do have some slides around, just to show mobile testing, accessibility testing, and all that. Also slide around, maturity transformation, but I do want to kind of leave it there, and ask if you have any questions so far. If there's none, let me go back to the partner, section. You heard a lot around Tricentis, so I do have couple documents, kind of to say that what they have and what they are and all that. But one deck that I would like to quickly pull up is the partner positioning for their products. So they do have various products. I'll just quickly give a very high level, just so that if you ever come across. There's something called QTest, which is a test management tool. A test management tool to host the test cases from a test case design standpoint, execution standpoint, reporting standpoint, and defect logging standpoint. It natively integrates with Jira and others, but that's a test case management tool. The next one is Live Compare, which I just mentioned. In the SAP space, SAP is an ocean, and it is not easy to know what has changed, and all that. SAP has their own component called BPCA, Business Process Change Analyzer, but that's really pain. No customers would use it, even though they attempt to use it. It's really pain, no support, and all that. So a lot of customers are using just the Live Compare, and it's an attractive area. So if you come across any customers on SAP customers for SAP implementations, one, we could do the automation if they don't already have. If they already have automation, this is an area of entry point for us, a Live Compare, where we can propose from a change management standpoint and get into the automation space. The third is the data integrity, DI. Like I said, for the data warehousing and the data quality testing, we can automate all that with data integrity. Again, this is also an entry point. Not a lot of customers have automated the data testing, data quality testing. They do a lot of data work, ETL work, reporting work, data mart, snowflakes, the entire, data lake standpoint, data mart standpoint, but not a lot of it was automated. This is also a very good entry point, automating the data quality and the data testing through Tosca DI, especially larger and medium-sized enterprise customers. Then Neoload is a performance testing tool, which is a commercial tool, open source was JMeter, but if we need a large scale and large volume to test, Neoload does scale up to million virtual users and all that. But Neoload is very prominent in the market. Tricentis acquired them 2 years ago, but it does kind of take care of the performance testing. Then the next one is Vera. Vera in a FDA regulated environments like life sciences, pharma, manufacturing, and all that, there is something called 21 CFR Part 11 validation testing, which I showed earlier as VQT. So when you do the testing there is a requirement for evidence capture, meaning as and when you test something, everything has to be recorded, everything has to be captured from an evidence standpoint that something was tested. And it is very hard to test manually and capture those evidences, writing step by step, what was expected versus what was validated, and then taking screenshot of every single screen that it does. So Tricentis Vera does make it happen, and easy to use in terms of capturing evidences that are required from regulatory standpoint, summarizing it a way that FDA really require. So Tricentis Vera is meant for that. Then finally, Testim is their newest acquisition and their offering for web applications, especially Salesforce and kind of easy kind of web based applications. Testim is a lightweight plugin that quickly has with some AI ML built in terms of how quickly can you automate and how quickly do the web applications alone, not the entire set of applications. So that's their ecosystem.
Does this hold good for Sitecore as well?
Yeah, it does for good for Sitecore too. Yeah, it's kind of lightweight compared to Tosca. and also kind of SaaS based, so can quickly can be stand up pretty quickly. We are using Testim right now for NASDAQ Salesforce. And again, as you would have noticed, these are sort of battle cards in terms of where it plays, what are the questions that you can ask, and some buzzwords in the market, some discovery questions, who's the competition specific to these and all that. So again, all these are there. Please go through it as required, and just ask me if you have any questions. Okay. All right. Rest of the flow there is very similar. For Genrock, also kind of for the test data management, I've indicated, some reference material there, what it is about, and their battle cards and all that. We do have our own battle cards, and let me go there. The big bet standpoint, like I said, from a partner strategy standpoint, specific to QA automation and in scriptless side, it is Tosca. Secondary Scathlon and others as needed. From an open source standpoint, Selenium, and secondary is Playwright and Robot. Test data management, just one. Genrocket is all that we're going. Performance testing, a primary JMeter, because these are short-lived engagements. But if other customers need an extensive volume, then we go with Neoload. Test data management, as you can see, mobile testing, Peakload and Copiton. These are tactical partnership because we have very few limited engagements on mobile testing. Change management specific to SAP, Live Compare, and data and ETL testing, DI, and secondary is open source frameworks. So these are, in general, Tricentis is the de facto go-to partner. But one thing I've not touched earlier, but I do want to touch now, is as a combination of the process automation and the QA. The RPA tools are different from the test automation tools, although both are meant for automation. The RPA roles typically are to automate the production systems, meaning once an application is live, whatever typical business users or the end users use the system is what will be automated or usually expected to be automated with RPA tools like UiPath, Automation Edge, and all that. Whereas the test automation tools are typically the tools that are meant to automate the functionality before it goes to production, while it is in the development phase, while it is in the testing phase. So that's the distinction between RPA tools and the test automation tools. Having said that, UiPath is one platform that they have RPA, predominantly known for RPA, but they have also released their version of test automation too. So RPA Studio is meant for UiPath Studio is meant for RPA, as well as they released a product called UiPath Test Suite that is built on their studio, which is meant for QA automation, not RPA automation. So if you come across any customer who has a UiPath for RPA, and if they're not using Test Suite for automation, maybe some other tool, or maybe they're exploring to do the automation, UiPath Test Suite is a logical choice because they already have licenses for it, or maybe they can easily get few licenses specific to Test Suite. So if you come across any, even though Tricentis or de facto, if you come across any customers that has UiPath or has intent to go with UiPath, they would rather rationalize and consolidate under one for both RPA and for UiPath test and for test automation. Is it clear? Any questions? So absolutely no questions. That's good. Gaurav and others, you want to add anything else? Pretty much I'm done on the QA side. Of course, sorry, the big bets, where do you want to do? We don't have any distinctions on which domain we want to go. We cut across all. And specialty, you would have already understood by now. Salesforce QA and automation, Infor QA and automation, S4HANA, which we're building because of the accelerators that we have, data quality and bot testing. Like I said, these are all the specialty differentiated services that we continue to want to focus on. And scriptless automation testing is in general is a go forward mantra that we wanted to focus on, in addition to the test data management that we talked about.
Yeah, Shiva, testing, my hands a little shorter than what
That's okay.
I can put it on automation, but at least on the partnership standpoint, Tricentis, Copado, in fact, UiPath, Test Suite, and others, whether it is GenRocket and others, these are very strong partnerships that we have built over time, and have good connects in these organizations, right? So it is easy to leverage our partnerships in these area, and that's where I think QEA being one of our strongest and one of our larger practices as well. So yeah, this is one strong area that we should all anyway focus on.
Okay, and just to supplement our capabilities, I have pulled in all the case studies, pretty much we have done so far. We have close to 49 case studies that I've documented here, and this slide deck has all. The logos that you see, pretty much all logos here, these are not the logos that we served at Marla's level, but from a QA standpoint across different domains, media education, BFSI, healthcare. Sorry, it's only BFS, not I, and I is included in the healthcare and insurance, T3 life sciences retail. So pretty much all follow the same, pattern, like challenges, solution, and outcome. But like I said, we have close to 49 case studies that are listed here. Some, I think 7, I believe we have only the templates. We don't have the data filled in. I just need to pull it in, which I promise will happen in the next week or so. But predominantly, we have close to quite a few that you can engage, that you can take already.
Shiva, you did mention about testing around AWS. Is there a case study on that as well? Anything around that? Or
Yeah, so we have an indirect case study, not a direct case study from a deployment standpoint. We have some case study to talk about Practicing Law Institute, where we have done that from an Azure standpoint. But we can create one from an automation standpoint.
okay, why I asked was, as we are building our partnership with AWS as well, we need to put in the offerings that we
We'll
have,
work
right?
on that. Yeah,
So
we'll work
we
on that.
can work it. A little
Sure.
separate discussion, but yeah, I'll
Okay,
reach
sure.
out to you for that.
Sure, definitely. So, like I said, we have been strong in QA. It's not in just in terms of words, but also we have such great case studies. Like I said, close to 48 case studies that have been documented, which you can kind of leverage as needed. Okay, any questions? All right, let me jump on to the next area, which is the DevOps. DevOps engagements typically are not long running engagements. Once you set it up, probably 3-4 months or 6 months, then you are done. DevOps has two, kind of engagements typically. You set up the DevOps CI/CD, continuous integration and continuous deployment/delivery. Then when it goes to production and operations, typically, how you manage these applications, monitor these applications, which is slightly different area. So it has an integration between application side as well as on the infrastructure side. So if you're talking about an infrastructure based automation and all that, even though it's in the broader DevOps world, it is more of an infrastructure automation, which typically Jagan's team is taking care. I'm more focusing on the automation side as well as on the the core SRE operation side. But in all, again, Marlabs can deliver, whether it is infrastructure as a code, or whether it is application as a code, we can take care of it from a DevOps standpoint. So what we focus on DevOps is, again, we have done this for different customers. We call it more as a 4-quadrant approach. From a product standpoint, we can define agile transformations. Pretty much most of the customers these days are on agile, but if somebody still want some legacy and mostly around the life sciences, healthcare, those customers, a lot of them are still on the on the waterfallish methodology. As needed, we can definitely help them with the agile transformation and the agile focus. So we strongly believe that that's where we have to start, having the right vision. The agility has to start from the product and the product management standpoint. Then it comes to the continuous integration, building the source control mechanism, be it Git, be it SVN, one way or the other. Then unit testing, automating a part of unit testing, doing some code quality scans with SonarQube, all that, and then security, as part of the development phase. So anytime there is an application that that's built, how can you run a security scan at the app level, more as a static code analysis standpoint. The true SecOps is part of it. Then QA automation part of, as and when there is a build, how do you test it, right? We call it continuous testing. So how do you integrate continuous testing with the whole ecosystem of the DevOps, part of the second quadrant, which is CI. Then on the right hand side, lower side, which is the third quadrant, more around the release management aspect. Once an application is built, where do you deploy? How do you deploy? And how do you spin up an environment, and how do you manage the entire environment management and the pipelines? Then doing a deployment around continuous testing, and creating those pipelines, the containerization, configuration management, infrastructure as automation, all comes under the release quadrant. And finally, once the application gets into production, how do you measure and monitor the application? The concept called site reliability engineering, which is SRE. How do you ensure the observability of the application, the monitoring of the application, availability of the application, and the whole 9 yards around ensuring application is readily available as and when it is needed, and to the extent it is needed, is the whole SRE. So we have done this end to end. We've also done this in parts and parcels for different customers as needed. And in this process, there are many tools that you can that you would have to integrate. It's not one tool that does everything, like the hyper automation or different tools that we've seen earlier. Every area has, there are set of tools for the planning and the product management part. There are set of tools for the code reviews, set of tools for build management, set of tools for QA and the test management. Likewise, on the operation side, deploy side, and monitoring. So it's again not the only thing. There are many other tools. It's a very crowded space, and it's an aggregation of a lot of different areas put together. So a lot of tools that comes in, but our experience comes in terms of integrating these tools, plumbing these tools together to make the objective happen. That's where our experience comes in. We don't bring a platform, we don't bring a framework, because it's hard to bring a framework or something that cuts across all. We do have a framework which we used to call machine framework, the framework on how we integrate these tools together and enable for customer, from a deployment standpoint and CI/CD standpoint. And that's where we come in. Like I mentioned, CI/CD has been implemented across many customers these days. It's very few who don't have DevOps and CI/CD these days. But where do we get in? How do we get in? What makes it? How do we create the differentiation? Is our SRE approach. SRE approach, nothing but like I said, a site reliability engineering. When an application gets into production, how do you ensure the stability of the application? So this goes back to the performance testing and engineering that I spoke as part of QA. So in order to ensure the stability of the application, you got to do load testing and the performance testing on the application. So as you do the tests, you would know how an application is really reacting. So the performance plays a key role as part of SRE. You create and do lots of rounds of testing. And in the process of performance, you create a baseline, you create a benchmark, and you identify the issues where it is happening. So when there is, let's say if you're running a test, if there is a part of the code that's not working right, or if there is an API call where the response is taking long time, you would identify all those by setting up the performance tools as well as the monitoring tools. It has a joint effort between these two. Coordinate, identify the bottlenecks. Once we identify the bottlenecks, we go back and give it to the development team to fix those, do necessary tunings, and the process continues. In that process, you ensure the stability, you define the performance, you pick the latency, whatever is required, and in this whole process, you really look for, looking at, the availability of the application. Is it 19, 2 nines, 4 nines, 99.95, 99.99, 99.999, right? So they call it like 4 nines, 5 nines, and all that. Not every company would need them, but that's a fancy word, and people want to go there for. So it's about ensuring the availability and having the observability through the tools is typically SRE. And this is a door opener for us. Not many customers are using. DevOps is already kind of saturated, but SRE is where we can make the difference. Again, it's a combination of performance testing, performance tuning, monitoring, and some sort of infrastructure as a code, kind of goes together. DevOps all goes together. Again, it's a mindset, it's an approach, but how do you really leverage all this to set up SLAs, and SLOs, and then make this all together is what it is. In this process, we plumb a lot of tools together, but so be it. But predominantly it involves all these components that you see on the screen. Again, like I said, it has to be a coordinated effort across monitoring, can integrate with service management based on the tools that we really do it, and based on the alerts that we set up, and automatic tickets can be logged. We need to look at the logs, ticketing tools, and monitor tools, and run the performance test hand in hand, do necessary tunings, and then continue to evolve. That's the process around SRE and ensuring the observability of an application. So that's about it from a typical Nyan standpoint. But again, going back to the repository.
On the SRE, what's a best story around that?
We have Centene. Centene, we did set up SRE. The way we started with Centene is, Centene had a problem that when a customer calls them especially during the enrollment time, sometimes call do just don't connect at all. Even if the call connects, the call drop is pretty significantly high. So they had issues in terms of picking which ones not, and all that. So our entire thing has started with how do you really ensure the application stability is there. So combination of our team who joined as the on-site infra guy, the Rohan. He and his group, primarily responsible for the networking side. But we started with the call center, stability observability program. And part of it, call center is the front face, but behind the call center, what runs is the applications. So our team, we are like a 4-member team, started spinning up a team together in terms of cleaning up the entire application as well as the voice related channels, running some tests both on the voice side, on the application side, from the performance side, and setting up the entire monitoring, framework and all that. So it's we're kind of close to 2 years. We have done a decent shape, but there was really no monitoring tool, or a mechanism in place for them when such call happens, when something really goes wrong. Where is it really dropping? What connection is really causing them, to make sure customers are experiencing that? So that whole story is now built in a way that the end-to-end monitoring is set up. Now they know when some call gets dropped, where is it happening, what's triggering that, and they kind of made a schedule wherein the DevOps teams take care of it and work with the application teams to fix it. But our part in whole that equation in the story is the enablement of the monitoring and observability on the call center voice line side as well as on the application side at Sentient. That's been a bigger case study. We've also done for GG, prior to COVID in a parts and parcel where again, they don't have bigger problems, but they wanted to make sure the entire observability was maintained. That's also done. In fact, we do have all the case studies listed. You can kind of go through it. These are documented here.
Is SRE then a sell to CTO than a CIO? Sure.
That is correct. It's more to do, again, the benefit of the SRE is for the CIO, but the technicality and the build-up of that is for the CTO.
Okay.
Okay. But we do have, all the DevOps case studies listed here. Please, again, go through it at your convenience. We do have close to 10 case studies that are listed there. I've also listed on all the white papers and the analyst content and all of it. Recently, we closed with, an SRE. We signed up an SRE engagement with Steris, a licensed customer. I've also added a quick deck that we presented so that you kind of understand what's coming there. So that's it around the DevOps. Again, we are 5 minutes, longer than what we planned for. Any questions? DevOps, process automation, quality engineering. I know a lot that we spoke about in 2 hours. It's usually takes each one we can spend a day, but obviously we all don't have that much time. So please, if you have any questions, please ask me now. If not, at least please go through it. I will send all the links, document everything. Please go through it at your convenience and let me know. It's almost like close to 12 GB repository that I'm sharing. So please do go through it at your convenience and let me know.
Sure. Thanks.
Okay. Any questions? I'm just kind of trying to get back to my.
Thanks, Shiva. This is good. I need to drop off.
Sure. Yeah, actually, even I have to go.
Bye. Take
So
care.
just if
Thank
anyone
you.
has any questions, please ask me.
Thank you.
Otherwise,
Do share that link,
Ah.
Shiva. I think the repositories are all great. Yep.
I will share right today.
Thanks.
Thanks, Shiva. Thanks, Shiva.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Bye.
much,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shiva.
Thank you, Shiva. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm just trying to.
Later, I'm gonna look for you, try to make an agenda just with you. I wanna hear some advice about how we can approach Nestle Mexico again, because I had a meeting with Nestle Mexico. The hub of technology was moved from Brazil to Mexico, and all the I had the whole team, RPA and automation team was in this meeting with me, but I approached with Automation Edge, and they was looking for another thing. They are not looking for a new tool. They are looking for services.
No problem.
So I'm gonna ask her another opportunity, and then I'm gonna bring you for the meeting, because in Mexico they can speak English. So I think we can have a good chance there.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'll set up something for Monday afternoon. Let's discuss, put something together, and we'll talk.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
my friend.
Thank you so much, Marcel.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.